minutes. Again, the first set of questions will go to Democrats. I would again ask you to be as brief as possible. And as far as applause and stuff, I'm not going to ask you to sit on your hands. Remember, the more you applaud, the less time we have for discussion. So, first hand I see, right there.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Galato, and I live at Sailors Lane. And I have a couple of issues I'd like the incumbents to comment on. First, you know, the budgets in Bridgeport are difficult, and you are volunteers, and I'm wondering your perspective on taking advantage of, we're fortunate to have a nationally recognized individual in our community who pays taxes and who worked for President Clinton and a number of presidents, and who offered his services to help in the budget process. David Walker, many of you may know, and I'm curious to find out why you didn't take advantage of his offer. Secondarily, if you could just comment and enlighten those of us who pay taxes how we could spend $400,000 to pave the driveway of a city contractor who lives in Stratford. And then third, if you could just comment on what plans and procedures have been put in place to help prevent the recurrence of the snowstorm disaster that we had last year, where the city of Bridgeport was gridlocked for 5 days.
Okay, I don't mean to, let's try to avoid multi-part questions, but we're going to let this one go because I didn't say anything beforehand. And remember, all questions are addressed to all members. Sue and Steve?
Yeah, I'll start, and I'll start on the first question, which was the budget question. I'm sure we'll get into details of the budget later on, so I won't get into the specifics. But on the specific point about Mr. Walker, I did meet with him multiple times. I met with him on 2 or 3 occasions at his office. We exchanged phone calls, we exchanged emails. You know, you have to understand the position I was in. I got sworn into the city council on April 1st. On April 2nd, the mayor released a budget that called for a 6% tax increase. I was scared out of my mind. I knew I'd be facing all of you in several months. I knew there'd be public forums to discuss this, and I knew I had to look you all in the eye when I go running around St. Mary's in the morning with my wife and daughter. And I was looking for any solution there was to get this budget down for a 0% tax increase. So I did. I reached out to Mr. Walker. I met with him on several occasions. We discussed his ideas. I took all of them back to the city council. Without going into specifics, I'll tell you that the vast majority of them are stuff the city's already working on. A bunch of other ones require either changes to state law or to union contracts, which unfortunately we as a budget committee don't have time to effectuate when we get the mayor's budget on April 2nd and when we have to pass our budget by May 15th. And that truly was the case. It's not that we ignored his advice. He certainly was welcome to come to any of the budget sessions, which are open to any members of the public. I didn't see him at any, but like I said, I did meet with him on several occasions, and I did convey, as his council representative, I felt it was my obligation to convey his ideas and his message back to the budget committee.
I think we're going to be a little challenged with this 2-minute story if we have 3 questions.
Yeah,
so if I'll try and make this very brief. I'll go to the access road in Stratford. In every bad story, there is a much better story that started, and unfortunately, of course, there is a black mark on this project. What you need to remember is that for 20 years we've been trying to negotiate with the town of Stratford to get this safety zone in place in the airport, and we are at risk. We are very, very much at risk of a timeline that is going to shut the airport down for good, which is, many people feel that is what the town of Stratford would prefer. And so the fact that we were able to come to the table, that the city was able to come to the table with the town of Stratford, with Secretary LaHood at the table with us, making this happen, is monumental and fantastic. There are details within that multi-million dollar project that are about the lining of the runway or the moving of the access road. The city council does not have intimate knowledge of every piece of every project that goes on. So when this access road, it's not really a driveway. It's being called a driveway, and unfortunately that's quite a misnomer. It's an access road. It accesses 4 people's homes, and if we're to move the runway, or the main street, to accommodate the safety zone on the runway, we have to give them access to their home because we are now cutting it off and they don't have access to their homes. So we've got to build them an access road. There is no question that the way that it happened stinks to high heaven. And it's important to know that 2 things, and I'll try and make it very brief, 2 things. The person responsible for the decisions that were made, what I believe to be poor decisions, has lost his job. Period. Number 2, the process, and I told you before, I'm a process person. I have got to root cause every problem. How did this happen? What is the problem? So we have, as the council, we have taken this ordinance for purchasing, and we are going through it now. There was a proposal for it to be amended. We didn't think that it was enough. And so there's a whole lot more work to do about it. And one of the things you have to remember is that with everything that we do on the council, if it comes to us today, it probably comes out of committee many, many times, 6 months from now, because we're working on it. It needs to change. It can't be what you gave it to me, the way that you gave it to me, because we think that it needs change. That's what we as the council do. And so this particular item will probably die because our session will end, and it is our absolute top priority to be certain that that is first on the agenda when please God, and if we don't, I'm asking you, I know you will, to make sure that that is top of the agenda for that ordinance to be tightened up so that that can never happen again.
Yeah, first of all, the airport operates at a $300,000 or $400,000 loss every year, so we basically subsidize an airport for people that benefit places like Stanford and Norwalk and other places where people happen to be doing the business. I'm not sure it's a good deal to begin with, but secondly, my understanding was it was a $3 million borrowing initiative that was presented to the city council, $400,000 of which apparently went to build a driveway, which is 1/7 of that total, or thereabouts. I would be the first person to ask for a breakdown of that $3 million. I think it's important to recognize that we all lack information on many, many things, but we don't lack the ability to ask questions. And I think it's many times it's asking the right questions, and I don't know that the right question was asked. It seems a simple matter to me. Thirdly, the whole airport driveway thing is emblematic of the conflicts of interest that exist in our city government that have to end. The person who sits as president of the city council also sits on the airport commission. Presumably this was discussed at that level, presented back to the city council, and then when it was uncovered by the CT Post, it was then presented or forwarded to the labor relations office where the city council president happens to work. If that is in conflict, if that is not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. I mean, it reads like a bad novel to me. And so the recourse as a citizen, and Sue brought this up to me, is, you know, file a complaint with the ethics commission. We have an ethics commission, let them handle it. So I did in June. I have yet to get a response from the ethics commission on this issue. So that was a bad deal. And the other part of that bothers me, and is one of the things that motivated me to get to this table tonight, is that was uncovered. That one instance was uncovered. The bad stuff there was uncovered. How much more is going on that isn't uncovered? And that perception, that culture of corruption has plagued this city for so long, that has deterred real developers from coming here to do business, is certainly continuing with stuff like this. And we have got to bring openness to this government. If we've got an ethics commission that doesn't act on a complaint, if we've got council members that don't ask simple questions, if we've got conflicts of interest that are clear and evident to anybody with any degree of common sense, we have got to start making fundamental changes in the way this town is run, period.
I think that what you're going to hear over and over tonight is how hard the job is of operating a city. I get that. I'm looking forward to the challenge. God willing, I'll have that opportunity. At the end of the day, that cannot be an excuse for ineptitude. And what we have in the city of Bridgeport is ineptitude in every direction that we look at. When the question that was posed with regard to David Walker is really an interesting question, and the answer also tells a lot. What I would have done is brought David Walker into the office. What I would have done is opened the books for David Walker. What I would have done is said, David Walker, what can I do for you so that you can analyze this budget and tell us how to fix it, how to improve it, and how to do all of the above. Instead, what we got is a telephone call, a follow-up call, an email. All, in essence, to keep David Walker at arm's length away from the data that needs to be analyzed. Folks, we got to get in there. You and I have to get in there. We need transparency in the city. We don't need a bunch of people telling us how hard the job is. By the way, I'm really well educated. I can handle it. Okay? And I trust that many of you in this room can handle it too. We can look at the information and feel just fine understanding it. To get to the driveway once again, it stinks to high heaven. Yeah, a lot of things stink to high heaven in Bridgeport. The fact that Manny Mutino was involved. Maybe you don't know Manny. Well, Manny gets a lot of jobs in Bridgeport. He's also a huge donor. You know, this is what stinks to high heaven. There's a lack of understanding of what a conflict of interest is. You may not work for a company and then also vote on a budget that rewards that company any money. That is a conflict of interest. You may not work for your employer and also vote on it, because your employer could come in and say, hey, get in here. If you vote that way again, I'll fire you. So who does he work for, us or him? Enough. This has got to end. The reason that I'm running is to, God willing, bring sanity, normal sanity, folks, normal stuff that you and I understand deep inside. We get it. But we're told it's too hard. We can't handle it. I'll share with you my resume if you wish, so you can have confidence that I can handle this task. I don't think it's too hard, because I will employ you as my eyes. Let's all look at it together.